Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mr. Ali. This is a real story on ZMC Network. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming along and seeing what today's show is all about. Every Thursdays, the real story on ZMC Network. Today, we are going to be talking about the New Year blues. Under normal circumstances, the start of the new year can be a very lonely, can be very depressing time of the year. However, we are under unprecedented times at the moment with COVID as well, and that has really magnified and multiplied the problem even more. But before I introduce you the guest for today, I'd like to go through, as always, the latest COVID figures just to inform you where we are and what further public health measures we need to adhere to and implement. So in terms of our cases, they are now in Birmingham 728 cases, positive cases per 100,000 population. And that's a roughly 25% increase compared to the previous week. In terms of some of those wards that we are seeing an increase of roughly 200% include Lozells, that has 1,366 cases per 100,000 population, followed by Sparkhill, which has 1,289, Hall Green, which has 1,196, followed by Small Heath, which has 1,132, and finishing off with Almrock, 1,047. So they are showing a unprecedented peak of around 200%, which is far more than the first regional lockdown as well. So, and this, the reason why we are sharing these figures is because there has been a unprecedented demand, our NHS and also our hospitals, so much so that at the moment some of the hospitals are showing 200% beyond their usual capacity, and there are talks that hotels and they are having to refer now patients to other trusts outside of Birmingham as well. In terms of deaths have now totaled a staggering 100,000 since the COVID has been around, and that is a massive figure. So far the largest within Europe. And who would have thought at the start of lockdown or start of COVID that we would have lost 100,000 people due to COVID? But there is some positive light. We have now just under 3 million people that have now been vaccinated across the UK. And that's a testament to the logistical and to the fantastic frontline NHS key workers that we have that are working day and night to make this happen. At the same time, I think we have to add a ounce of reality. There are some areas, especially the high BAME community, the Black, Asian, minority ethnic communities, who are showing a decline of as much as 55-60% of people that are being invited to have declined their vaccination. And my urge is to them to get that done ASAP. The other bit of a public health notice I want to give out is on a call that I was with Dr. Justin Varney, was that the people that seem to be spreading the transmission of the virus are twofold. One is the younger people who are roughly between the ages of 14 and mid-20s. Secondly are the ones that are aged between 60 and 70 years old as well. These are not the ones that are retired. These are the ones that are active, maybe even possibly working. And what we are seeing that the second place that they are seems to be where is a hub of transmission is a personal home. So these are where you are mixing with other family members, or people are coming to see you at your home, or you are going to see other people in their home. That is where the majority, 80-90% of the transmission is taking place as well. So, next week is going to be the peak for the number of positive COVID cases and the amount of stress that the NHS is going to be bear, which is around the end of next week. But after that, hopefully we should see a lot more light at the end of the tunnel. Anyway, that brings me nicely onto my topic today, which is all about the New Year blues. So normally at this time of the year, you just celebrated Christmas, New Year celebrations with your family, friends. You spent an awful lot of amount. Now the big low comes. it's rather cold, gloomy outside, very dark early on in the afternoon, and you have a bit of time to think about what am I going to do with my life, where am I at. You start comparing, you start thinking, and that can be a real doom and gloom time. So we are going to be talking about New Year blues, and in particular about resolutions, about maybe a career change, and also in terms of lockdown and vaccination as well. And to help me talk about today's topic, I have none other than Matthew Sharkey, better known as Sharkey, but I'll be calling him Matt, who's going to help me talk about the New Year blues, and in particular about the state of mental health and what can we do to be a lot more robust in order to deal with all sorts of challenges that we are facing. So thank you, Matt, for taking time out and joining me and help me to cast a expert view on this. Also, normally, not even during the COVID time, this is a time where a lot of people, because of the weather, the early nights, the people are sort of in considerable debt because the amount of money that's spent. Normally they're feeling a bit lull, bit heavy, maybe because of the amount of food that they've eaten as well over Christmas. It's quite a bit of a depressing period, isn't it? So why is that? I mean, I've tried to sort of explain, but is that seasonal, or is that just because as humans we need to have a sense of focus, and maybe this is a time of year where we tend to try to realign ourselves in terms of to question why we are here and what sort of purpose do we have?
Well, firstly, thanks for inviting me on your show, Mr. Ali. And for me, you answered it in the question. I do think it's part of human nature. I also think we have a tendency to set ourselves up for things that we want, parts of us want, and other parts don't. And that usually shows up in, sabotaging your goals, whether it be diet, losing the holiday weight,
Yeah,
saying you're going to go to the gym but not going, little things like that. But they always seem to be huge. And obviously, you said very well, this year we've carried on with the baggage from last year, and it's still going on. And I'd
most
say
definitely.
that, I would say I'd love to know your opinion, but I would say, what would you say about how we've adapted or learnt since this all kicked off? I think it was the end of March in the UK last year. I seem to remember being the 23rd or 24th. I was
That's
on.
right.
I told I didn't need to go to work, so I'd love to know your feedback. What do you think?
I think there's a real spectrum, really, depending on the amount of information that it's being disseminated, and I think there's also information overload, and sometimes I think we have a sense of duty to ourselves rather than some of the actions of politicians or celebrities, and there's a real fatigue now in terms of compliance, and there's also it's got to the stage now where people are now even questioning whether COVID actually exists. So, and we don't want to go into that debate, but I think as humans we do become saturated with the level of information, and we are as a population we tend to be a bit sheep as well. So if we see that people aren't complying with the rules and regulations set out by the government, which and by the chief medical officer, which is in our overall interest as citizens of the UK and of this world, we tend to say, well, if so and so is not doing it, why should I? I think that's the wrong attitude to take. We all have our own set of principles and values. We all have our own set of information and intelligence. So for me, I think we're at that crossroads whereby I think this vaccine has come at the right time, where it's given us a bit of a hope. If not, I think this lockdown would have been even more disastrous in terms of the number of people that would have been complying compared to how, for example, now the amount of traffic there is on the streets is about 70% compared to this time last year, which was pre-COVID. But at the height of the first lockdown, it was down to about 25%. So we've seen almost like a 50% increase in traffic and people moving around compared to the first lockdown. So that's where I say as though we just seem to be pushing the boundary a bit as well now. So I think as humans, I think we tend to sort of be quite sort of very looking at other people and then trying to sort of justify maybe our lack of compliance because others aren't. So I think, but that's what my own personal feelings are. But I want to sort of get to about the early point that you make. Normally at this time of the year, we all tend to have a bit of a reset. We tend to think, okay, what's bad in my life, whether it's our spending, whether it's over shopping over the internet, whether it is maybe I'm not happy in my relationship, or whether I'm not happy at work, whether I want to lose a bit of weight or whatever it may be. This is the time where we have that big reset, and we try to sort of have these measures in place. But again, sometimes I think it's stuff that's not something that I want to do, because it's the done thing about joining gyms that you mentioned and maybe losing weight. But and I'm just sort of towing the line and just sort of doing what is expected of me, rather than sort of really spending a bit of time thinking, what do I really want to achieve in order for me to achieve my goals or achieve happiness. And that takes a bit of time, and I think hence why we do see an increase in gym memberships during this month, albeit only for about 1 or 2 months.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, great. What I heard you say in the previous bit. I think how long's this radio show been going on for?
So this is a TV show, and my radio show's about
TV show.
a year now. Yeah. So it's a combination, and the reason why we want to do that is to get the communication out there to the wider public that they're not on their own at this time of the year. Everyone is going through a period of a bit of a low. The positivity has decreased. People are feeling a bit sluggish. People are feeling a bit sorry for themselves, and I think the first thing with these sort of issues is actually accepting and acknowledging that this is the way that they're feeling, and sort of almost then finding steps in order to address that. And I think sometimes the acceptance and the reality is a lot more harder to accept. And then this is where I suppose you need that network of friends, family to help you overcome that. But Matt, unfortunately, because of COVID, we aren't able to go and see our family and friends and have that hug, or just spend a bit of a quality time over a pint or over coffee. So people are now really struggling as to what they can do in terms of conversation wise, in terms of feeling a lot more comfortable with each other again.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So I mean, this is great, and this is great for anyone that watches this and the radio show as well. So that's awesome. If I may, I wanted to respond to offer a suggestion with the uh, to things you were talking about, compliance and defiance. Would that be right?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, before you do that, maybe just for the benefit of the listeners, just talk about your own expertise and your own background as well, because I know you're it's like a positive mental attitude sort of coach, and you're big into your mental health. So maybe just sort of put that out there so people are aware of your speciality.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks. Yeah. So I had so you may know that suicide rates are skyrocketing at the minute.
Absolutely.
One of the massive consequences of this pandemic we're experiencing. So I was a statistic, and I did die. Apparently,
Oh wow.
got brought back to life, and yeah. So since then, I've been on a journey of self discovery and just trying to figure out why it happened the way it happened. Is there any way that I can help the society, prevent this happening?
Yeah.
So I went on a journey of personal development. I started as a personal trainer, And then I went into counselling and psychotherapy, and then I came into a holistic coaching model that I still use today. So I've taken a bit of everything, but I continue my education. I'm 34 this year, so I could plan to continue it until my last breath.
Oh,
So
good.
yeah, so that's what I'm doing now. I mean, I'm just trying to, like yourself. This is what the one of the purposes that we got linked up, I believe, from our friend that we have in common. Just to put it out there that like you were saying,
Absolutely.
you don't have to suffer in silence if you don't want to. The NHS and the services are so stretched already. There's another way? There is an alternative. There are people out there that are trained that you can talk to. There are plenty of groups out there that do not cost anything. I do free groups. I do paid groups. I do one-to-ones. I do a lot of networking, and I've met a
Yeah,
lot of people that have done amazing things during the lockdown and continue to do good things. So that's been really great for me over this last year. And yeah, I mean that's it. Just sharing my story for those that can hear it and maybe see themselves
absolutely.
in me. It's a very
Yeah, I don't
common
want to pry too much into your personal
yeah, of course.
situation, Matt, at all. But I hope things have improved in terms of support services, and that you don't have to pay the ultimate sacrifice and sort of have to take your own life, because we do know sometimes we all go through period of real lows, and you think that there's no other alternative and there's no escape and there's no one there to help me or get me through this difficult period. And I suppose the fact that you've lived to tell your tale, and now you are the one who's managed to do a complete 180 degrees turn by helping others to deal with the predicament they find themselves in. I think first of all, it's a huge testament to you, and may you have more power in terms of what you're trying to achieve. And if there's anything that ourselves or I can do, then please do let me know. So at the moment, I'm sorry, I'm going to give you a chance to actually talk about the defiance of the compliance, really. Beyond that's what you to touch on. Then we'll move the conversation forward.
Okay, thank you, and also thank you for your reflection on what I said. I appreciate that. Yeah, so compliance and defiance. This is my suggestion. When we were growing up and we experienced our parents parenting us, what was our relationship with compliance and defiance? For me, I want to offer this suggestion. If we were creating a visual image of the government as a role, they were telling us what to do.
Absolutely.
And at the beginning, I'd say majority of us were being compliant. And then after a while, it seemed that the compliance was not enough. Almost like you're being told you're doing really well when you're a kid, and you come home, you show your parents your grades, and you get a B plus, and they're like, "Oh, next time you'll get an A." And there's nothing wrong with that, and they didn't intentionally mean anything by it, but maybe you experienced that as okay, that's not good enough. You didn't even acknowledge you. I think I heard you
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah.
acknowledgement massively, Mr. Ali. So I'm wondering if there's any
Yeah.
relationship there. And ultimately, defiance may be the best way we experience being acknowledged and noticed by our parents. When compliance didn't work, generally you switch to defiance. That's something that's in psychology books. That's not just something I'll come up with. That is a big popular belief and theory.
Yeah.
And logically, you think about it, it doesn't really it might not make sense. But when you think about the adult, like we are talking about New Year's resolutions, part of you is telling you want to lose weight, and the other part is saying no, I'm going to have chocolate cake for breakfast. You
Yeah,
know, that part of you is probably that kid that wakes up and he's like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
can I have some cake? You know what I mean? So as an adult, you know, I don't eat cake for breakfast, but as a kid, you probably would. You may do. So yeah. So sorry, that was my only reflection on that. I
No, no,
just
I really
there's a possible.
appreciate the relevance of that analogy, really, and I think there's a lot of thought that's gone into actually that, and I would even maybe sort of stretch it to a bit further, whereby it's almost like the parent saying, "Matt, don't smoke because it's bad for you," but as soon as your back is turned or you're at school. They're having a puff. So when you come back from school, you know that they've been smoking because you can smell it as soon as you enter the house. I think it was very similar to this, really. And also, I think the messaging around why we were doing it. So initially, it was all about for our hospitals and for our NHS, and that worked for a while. But after that, people just saw that. At the moment, we just can't see the sense of because the NHS. Why are we protecting the NHS? The NHS should be protecting us, and then the whole sort of support system in terms of if you're going to stay at home and be furloughed or your business is to be closed, there needs to be a significant resource that's been put in order for you to stay at home. I think that there was a bit of a disconnect and a bit of a discord, and people just felt as though that the support isn't there really. And I think that's what we got to try and address for those people that find themselves in a bit of a dark space at the moment with everything that's going on, and they are huge rates of mental health, whether it's young people now because their education has been disrupted. I did a show on Tuesday where the amount of alcohol and substance abuse has really spiked over the last 6, 7 months. And again, that's just, a way of young people saying that, we need help. They're calling out for attention. And we need to sort of be there for them. But again, at the moment, because everything is virtually, and everyone's busy and looking after themselves and dealing with their own predicament, at the moment, sometimes we forget that we need to be there for other people as well, and be a support mechanism for others. So it is a difficult time, and I would just say, people like yourselves, myself, we have a real responsibility to keep an eye out for those people that may have just fallen and be the safety net for them.
Yeah, yeah, massive, amazing. Just it's strange, isn't it? I mean, it's been it's been a journey, ups and downs as
Absolutely.
always. It's I just because this was I remember when I heard the first person say to me over the phone, "This is unprecedented. This has never happened in our lifetime," and I'm like, "Wow, that's so true." And what I've noticed is I'd say that the majority of defiance, let's say, has been a reaction to not being able to cope with what's going on and also not being necessarily aware of what's going on. And I don't mean whether COVID-19 is legit and that side of
Sure.
things. I mean, just not having the kind of awareness that actually I haven't been able to go to the pub for 3 weeks and I drink every day, but actually, I'm not an alcoholic. It's my social group. It's my friends. It's the way I socialise. It's the way I socialise. And they wonder why their mental health and their mood changes. And it's almost, and then what do? We blame someone else. We blame the government. I mean,
Yeah.
it's easy to blame the government because you could say, well, they should have done this, they should have done that. Yeah, there's some truth in that. But I would ask you to do Boris's job and tell me how you would have done
Absolutely.
it different. How would you have known? He's obviously
Yeah.
trained to
Yeah.
be a politician, and he's trained to accept the consequences of the power he's got. And then with great power comes great responsibility.
Possibility.
I don't know how I would. I would do his job. It's amazing.
No, no, no. No, I completely accept the point about making a bit of me time. The reason why people exercise, why people meditate and go to places of worship, whether it's mosques, whether it's churches, or even the pub, is that that's their downtime. That's time for themselves, so they can just unwind. They can just put all the day's stress to one side and just have a bit of a moment where they can smile and just be themselves for a moment. And I think that's gone. People are sort of bottling things up. People are suppressing a lot of their feelings, a lot of their built up emotions. And unless we give them an avenue to release that and create an open space, then I can see this being a lot more than just a COVID case. We will have physical and psychological and even spiritual gaps, and we'll have to do a lot more holistic management of these sort of pathways in order to make sure that again we don't have more people ending up with mental health issues and maybe going down the path that you had gone. But I think at the same time, because all the energy and resources are being put into COVID, things like cancer, heart operations, mental health has taken a back seat. And, if things don't improve quickly, I think this may end up with something that will impact us in 5 and 10 years' time as well.
Yeah. It's interesting when all this started. Mr. Ali, a friend of mine, messaged me and he was like, "I bet you've got no time for me, have you?" Because he assumed I'd be really busy. I was like,
Yeah,
"You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised because not everyone knows that I'm available. Also,
yeah,
I would offer that most people need to try and help themselves before they even consider getting help.
yeah, yeah,
And I honestly think human beings are so blessed, so intelligent, but we don't really know that. Like our resilience, and it's so. Whenever I meet people and they say, "Oh man, I haven't. I've had, I've had a good life. I've not suffered as much as you," and I always say,
yeah, yeah.
I appreciate where you're coming from, but you have suffered as much as me because you have suffered the way you have suffered. We have not walked each other's shoes, but I guarantee you've had dark times. It's not in your stars to handle it the way I did, but that doesn't mean you've had not had hard times. And from what you said, Mr. Ali, the one thing that I've noticed is not only has the the experience of this pandemic affected all of us, it's also affected the people that are trying to manage us, the
Yeah.
police, all the emergency services. I've heard a story about. I don't know if I'm okay to share it. I will. It's about some university students. I won't say where the university is, and they were crossing the boundaries a bit. They were watching the American election. They weren't having a party. They had a few people around more than they should have. Um,
Sure.
and the consequences, they accepted there would be consequences. What was really shocking for me, and I know this firsthand, is the consequences that they should have met were exceeded because the understanding and belief of what they were doing was completely obscured. So yes, there
Mm,
was there was a disagreement. I believe the penalty is a fine if you're caught in bigger groups.
that's right.
Um, the police raided the house. They kicked the door down. One of the students jumped out the window in fear and broke their feet. Um, so a local person gave the address of the house to the local paper and
Oh
told them
no.
they'd been partying. And then the people that seen it in the paper were going onto the university's group website and feed and asking them how they got punished, and the university was responding. The university threatened to chuck them out. They fined them all, and now I believe 50% of the students are now struggling with mental health. And
I can imagine.
the reason I share that is people do not learn. This is my opinion, if I'm allowed to share it. People don't learn if there are no consequences. You can drink every day of the week, and you carry on doing that until you get liver cancer, and you may even continue past that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to experience the consequences before you learn anything, and unfortunately, for me, I'm not sure how many people ask themselves about the consequences before they take certain actions. For me, at the minute, Mr. Ali, I've heard you said it a few times, and it was something along the lines of taking responsibility for ourselves. And there's a lack of respect. You do not have to believe what I believe, Mr. Ali, about what's going on, but I will always respect what you believe, and I would never disrespect that by trying to project my beliefs onto you. And unfortunately,
Absolutely.
that's something I am not seeing very much of. And I
No,
also
well said.
believe that is not helping the separation, the physical separation we've all got to endure. It's also causing this disheartening disbelief, sadness, it's nationwide, and it's really not what we. It's happening for a reason, but it's so sad. It is so
Yeah,
sad.
most definitely. If I can come in there now, I want to just sort of pick on the point that you made, and I think that was very eloquent as well, very sensitive of you, was that the answers are all from within us. But I think sometimes we do need someone just to unlock those answers from within and just sort of guide us to where the answers are and how we can get out through the problem that we find ourselves in. I want to spend just the last 5 minutes of the show now, Matt, just talking about what we can do to improve things and make sure that 2021 is a better year for us. So, some of the resolutions that we have, some of the state of play that we find ourselves in, how can we ensure that in 3-4 months' time that we are in a better place and that we are better placed in order to deal with the challenges that life throws at us. So I'm talking about things like maybe even spending some time as to what who we are, what our goals, making sure that we write them down and we sort of revisit them on a regular basis and hold ourselves to account, and also not worry about stuff that we can't control. Sometimes there are factors that are well beyond us, but we get far too embroiled and far too sort of involved in stuff that is more a regional or a national level as well. And one thing I must say is, maybe spend a lot more time doing activities or hobbies that make you happy. So just want to sort of spend maybe the last 5 minutes really now, just from your point of view, Matt. What would you suggest? How can we make sure that 2021 is a far more happier and contented place for us?
Well, I love that. Firstly, there was a gem in there for me. You might have seen me do prayer hands. Uh, Understanding that we cannot control everything. If anything, this pandemic has actually reminded us that actually everything is uncertain. You don't know when your last breath's going to be. You don't know when your last
That's right.
heartbeat's going to be. That happens subconsciously. You're not even in control of it. So that's a very big one for me. So thank you for saying that. That was really really big one for me. Also, I did a goal setting thing on networking for you last week, and that was my first one. Try not to control anything you can't. So the first thing I would say for me is focus on what you want, not what you don't want. So you can't ignore what's going on right now, but you can certainly spend a lot less time watching the news because you'll find out anyway.
Yeah.
And focusing on what you want instead of what you don't want. That is quantum physics. That's science now. If you focus on what you want, it will happen. You got to feel it. You got to imagine it. You want to go on holiday. You want to see family that you haven't seen. Visualize it. See that. See it happening. Feel it happening, and it will happen. That's science these days. Okay. And then for me, uh, compassion with self. If you need to have a drink, if you need to eat chocolate, if you need to do all these things that may not necessarily be in line with the goals you have, maybe a part of you can speak to another part of you and understand that that is necessary for now. And as soon as you start to do that and learn it for yourself, the chances of you having it for others are huge. And I honestly think for me, that will change things the most is understanding that not everyone's going to be abiding by the rules the same way you are, but stepping into their shoes and thinking, you know what, if I hadn't seen my siblings for 6 months, I think I'd be going a bit mental too. I think
Yeah,
I'd be
yeah.
kicking off. And maybe I can understand that person. I don't have to agree with it, but maybe I can respect that that may be what they're doing for them. Um, yeah, so they were my main ones. How were they for you?
Yeah. No, no, well said there, Matthew. So I think it has been a tough ride, but we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And what I would say is something that you echoed earlier is that hang on to your blessings. We are. Uh, we've got our health for the time being. We've still got, compared to everyone else, we're still able to, go for an exercise. We're still able to afford shopping. So, hang on to the positives that still are in your life. You may have young children. These are again our blessings as well. So, focus on your strengths rather than any negatives that are out there at the moment. And for me, I think at the same time, try to, whether it's digitally, whether it's through social distancing, try to have at least one person that you can have a human relationship, have a human conversation with. I think that makes a world of a difference. All in all, I think we've come a huge way. I think for me, it would be an absolute waste. It would be a tragedy if we threw everything away and just started to defy everything that's out there. And even to yourselves as well. As individuals, as humans, we've got far too much to offer, and we have far too many qualities in order for us to give up and think that we haven't got anything unique that is inherent that we can offer to the world as well. So, we are all here for a purpose, for a journey. God made us, separate compared to everyone else for a specific reason. Embrace that, acknowledge that, and just find out your purpose and what you can offer to the world. And if you can, fortunate to do that, I think you will lead a very prosperous, not in terms of financially, but in terms of that flame that's going to be flickering inside you. You'll be a very happy person by the end of your life as well. So I'm just going to ask you now, Matt, to give us your final thoughts, please, before we conclude the show.
Wow. Well, for me, there was a lot of wisdom in what you said, Mr. Ali. So I'm going to say leave it with your wisdom and also um, whenever you feel lost, remember where you are and that there's always someone there looking over you, whether you see them or not. I fully believe that. So this is going to be a big lesson for us. But I honestly believe that the sunset after the darkness will be monumental. It's not to discard or It's not to disrespect what's been going on. It's not about that, but it is about the massive awakening that I think is going to come from this.
Thank you, Matt. You've had a really amazing journey in a short space of time. Our support, our thoughts are with you, and may you continue to go on that journey and help as many people as possible. And like I said, hopefully this will be a start of our blossoming of our relationship and our friendship as well. So, like vice versa as well. If you need to reach out, I'm always here for you, mate. So I think me, you, and Raj, we need to maybe meet up for a curry.
Yeah, that sounds good, and maybe we can bring Raj along as well. That's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you take care. Cheers, Matt. You take it
Thanks,
easy.
mate.
That was the
Cheers.
legend that is Matt Sharkey, who has come through a period of darkness where he was about to pay the ultimate sacrifice of committing suicide and taking his own life. And it was for the will of the Almighty that he's had a second chance, and he's now helping other people. And all I will say is that, at the moment, it is a very bleak picture, but look at the positives, look at the blessings that we have, focus on those. And if there are aspects of your life that you want to improve, do you want to work towards a better place, then focus on those and really spend some time thinking about it, write it down, maybe even discuss it with your partner, with your friends, and put steps in place in how you are going to achieve that, and have regular touch points as well. And before you know it, you will be becoming a lot more a rounded person as well, where you are not only leading a content life, but you will also be inadvertently helping the circle of family and friends that are within that. Until next week, please continue to observe the social distancing, hand, face, and space. God bless. Look after yourselves and each other.